Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Let's dive into this fascinating tapestry of political and business entanglements stretching back over 40 years between Trump and Russia.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild ride through history, right? What really strikes you as the key point here?
What's really eye-opening is how Trump's ties with Russia aren't just a one-off thing. They span from his very first trip to Moscow in 1987, arranged by Intourist, all the way to recent moves, like his planned summit with Putin in Alaska in 2025.
Right. That's almost like a continuous saga. It's like every chapter adds a layer, starting with flattery from Soviet diplomats, then moving into business deals and state-backed influences later on.
Exactly. Back in 1987, after being smothered with compliments, flattery from Soviet Ambassador Yuri Dubinin, Trump takes his first trip to Moscow. And that trip, many believe, was aided by the KGB indirectly. Can you imagine that kind of early influence?
It's sort of like opening a door that just keeps swinging open to opportunities that run deep into the corridors of power.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just a door, it's a whole corridor, really, leading to deals and, associations involving Bayrock Group in the 1990s and 2000s. This group, run by Tevfik Arif and Felix Sater, had clear ties to Russian and post-Soviet money.
Absolutely. And those connections weren't without legal and financial controversy, remember? Lawsuits and, reports hinted at money laundering risks and controversies over projects like Trump Soho.
Right, exactly. And then there's the 2008 episode where Trump flips his Palm Beach mansion to Dmitry Rybolovlev for a record sum, buying it at one price, then selling it for way more. It's a stark reminder of how, Russian money often appears in these very upscale deals.
It almost sounds like a recurring theme where business, politics, and foreign influence mix in ways that are, deeply intertwined.
Oh, and then we get into the more politically explosive territory. Just think about July 27th, 2016. Trump goes on TV and says, "Russia, if you're listening." And that very day, Russian military hackers launch spear phishing attacks related to Clinton's emails. That's some, eerie synchronicity.
It's like the moment when the personal and the political suddenly blur, and all those past connections start to look like part of a bigger, deliberate pattern.
Exactly. And if we roll further forward, there are even more intricate connections. In 2013, Trump hosts Miss Universe in Moscow with oligarch Aras Agalarov, forging a link that later becomes critical during the 2016 campaign.
Yeah. And speaking of 2016, let's not forget the infamous meeting on June 9th, where Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort met with a Kremlin-linked lawyer who was, offering dirt. That back channel, like with Natalia Veselnitskaya, really fuels the subplot here.
Absolutely. It's almost like each milestone builds on the previous one. From early business ventures to these key meetings during the campaign, the trajectory paints a picture less about sudden, isolated incidents and more about a long-standing, ongoing pattern.
Though, I have to challenge one point here. Don't you think that at times, linking every business decision to Kremlin influence might be a bit of an oversimplification?
I get your concern. And, it's true that not every business deal is a secret liaison with foreign power. But when you put together the documentary evidence, letters of intent, emails, sworn reports, the accumulation of these events does suggest a pattern that's hard to ignore.
Fair enough. When you start looking at the details, it almost seems like there was a systemic, ongoing strategy over decades rather than purely coincidental interactions.
Exactly. And the list goes on. In 2010, for instance, the Trump International Hotel in Toronto's financing had links to Vnesheconombank, a Russian state bank, further deepening this complex web of interests.
That really shows how multifaceted it is. It's not just about one person or one decision, but a blend of business maneuvers and political influencers.
And the narrative extends well into Trump's presidency. Remember December 2016 when Michael Flynn discussed sanctions with Ambassador Kislyak? And later, in May 2017, you have Trump in the Oval Office openly sharing classified partner origin intelligence with Russian officials. That move raised serious questions about protocol and national security.
And then there was the Helsinki summit in 2018. On stage with Putin, Trump publicly sided with Putin's denials over U.S. intelligence. That, to many, was a stunning moment, almost as if history was not only repeating itself, but evolving in real time.
Right. Truly staggering. And fast forward to the present day. 2023 saw investigations into Trump Media and Technology Group for alleged money laundering linked to Russian sources. That's not just old business traction. It's a current, active concern.
Exactly. And the network deepens when you consider loans from entities like Paxum Bank, part-owned by a Putin associate, and connections to ES Family Trust, which are all tied into the same network.
And, look at the latest chapter. Trump is now preparing for a face-to-face summit with Putin in Alaska in August 2025. That's a dramatic escalation and, I think, a symbolic shift.
Yes, that location itself, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, really sends a clear, almost provocative message about U.S.-Russia geographical ties and perhaps an attempt to avoid, certain legal consequences.
Right. And critics argue that these private, unrecorded talks could signal dangerous concessions or a backdoor diplomacy that undermines transparency. It's like an unwelcomed echo of the past mingling with the present.
It almost feels like we're watching democracy being, quietly auctioned off piece by piece. And as the input reminds us, silence isn't neutral. These actions require, public scrutiny and concern.
Exactly. The record is right there. Documents, emails, sworn statements, laying out every twist and turn of this long, intricate saga.
I mean, it's, jaw-dropping to see how personal flattery and private business deals have intersected with major national policy over decades, almost like a script out of a political thriller.
Yeah, it's like a multi-layered narrative. Each moment, the Moscow trips, the business ventures, the campaign meetings, and now the looming summit with Putin, adds a chapter that reinforces this long-standing pattern of influence and intermingled interests.
And here's an analogy. It's like building a house over decades, with bricks made from both business deals and political favors. Each brick on its own might not seem alarming, but the overall structure reveals the intended design.
That's a great way to put it. And when you step back and look at the whole building, you see that it's not just random construction. It's a deliberate, strategic endeavor with a heavy dose of personal diplomacy.
It does beg the question, how much of American policy is being shaped by these private deals? And more worryingly, what does that mean for the future of democratic decision-making when, money and influence trample over public interest?
Absolutely. And that's the critical takeaway here. The intertwining of interests transcends political ideologies. It's about who holds the real power behind the scenes. The input really drives home that it's not left or right. It's about systemic influence and, compromised access.
True. And, seeing these patterns laid out historically should prompt us to ask some tough questions about transparency and accountability in our political system.
Indeed, every instance, whether it's a flashing headline about a mansion sale or a clandestine phone call with an intelligence officer, contributes to this bigger narrative. And while some argue that these connections are overblown, the documentary evidence is hard to ignore.
Yeah, well, while I understand the perspective, I still wonder if there's room for alternative interpretations. Like, could some of these actions be simply opportunistic business moves rather than deliberate political maneuvers?
Sure, there's nuance. But when you pull all the pieces together, from the early Moscow trips to the recent investigative probes, it paints a consistent picture of leveraging influence that, frankly, is very concerning.
That's a solid point. And with public scrutiny only intensifying as these developments unfold, it's clear that the intersection of business, politics, and foreign powers is a powerful force that demands our attention.
Exactly. In the end, the narrative isn't just about individual actions, but about an enduring pattern that, if left unchecked, could shape policy for decades to come.
And that's why it's so important to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and not let these tangled networks of influence go unchallenged.
No doubt about it. Every detail in this story, from flattery in Moscow to the secretive phone calls with Putin, reminds us that transparency in governance is essential.
Right. Well, thanks for walking us through this intricate story. It gives a lot to think about regarding how historical patterns can shape our present and future.
Absolutely, and thanks for joining this deep dive into the tangled saga of Trump and Russia. Until next time, keep questioning, stay curious, and don't be silent, because silence, after all, isn't neutral.